everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another Soulful Conversation. And today I am joined by three beautiful ladies. And today everybody is in the energy area. So we're going to be talking energy. We're going to be talking enlightenment. We're going to be talking awakening and all the good stuff. And the best people to present themselves are always themselves. But if you're listening today and somebody really like what they're saying, you have the handles right here in the corner, and I invite you to reach out to any of us if you want to know more about what any person is doing, what they're going through, what they're offering at the moment, and we're all going to give you also the information at the end. So today we're going to start with Rachel. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, hi, I'm Rachel D. Greenwell. I am the author of the book, How to Wear a Crown, A Practical Guide to Knowing Your Worth. I'm a life and spiritual coach. And here lately, I've just been really vibing with calling myself an unconditional love enthusiast as I've been branching out into some new areas of how to express what's in my heart and mind to share with the world. And that's what I realize is at the core of everything I do is just how can I express love in lots of different ways that in formats that people will enjoy. And so I'm shedding some older titles and embracing some new ones. But at the end of the day, I say, it's just Rachel. God knows who I am, and I know who I am. And I'm a multi-talented, jack of all trades kind of Renaissance woman. I like to do a lot of things. And so I'm Rachel. Hi.
Beautiful. Hi, Rachel. Very happy to have you here.
So happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
We're going to go with Deanna. Who are you? What do you do?
Wow, what a deep question, huh? Right, Rachel?
Yeah.
So, in the spiritual world, I am a Reiki master, archangelic light healing master, quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. There's a lot of other things in there too, including minister, like an ordained minister, all these kind of things in the spiritual space. But my background is I am a scientist by background and training, and spent many, many years in the science field. And so that's a little bit about what I bring into what I'm doing, just because as Rachel's already talked about a little bit about, it's like you look at things and you say, hey, there's more than just the physical, right? I mean, I was working in an area that was all about helping people heal, but it's kind of like, yeah, but there's another piece of this, right? There's another piece. And so then I kind of grew into, well, let me look at what this other piece is. And that's then who I became as I brought all of it together. So yeah, so that's kind of me in a bit of a nutshell.
That's awesome. I was reading your bio and I really like the mix between, the scientific and I'm not science, but I do human design, right? So it is a little bit based on science, but I really like when I have scientists on these panels because they take the conversation somewhere where I usually don't. And this is what I'm looking for these panels, is taking the conversations where I don't, which is why I mix all the different soul business owners, and it makes it even more interesting. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome. I love it.
Dawn, your turn to go into the deep question. Who are you and what do you do?
Thank you. This is a great room to be in. I am Dawn Gaden. I'm lots of things, right? As we all are. I am a licensed counselor for over 25 years. I self-image coach. I am a 2-4 in human design, learning a lot about that the past several months. Very interesting and intriguing. I teach a unique practice called Intensati, means mindful intention. It's a movement with mantras, meditation, music, and breath work. It's all about the mind, the body, spirit, soul connection. That's who we are as a whole. And that's what I love to teach. And besides that, I'm a mom of 4 boys, and I'm happily married and in a transition now, moving to our manifested dream home out on Lake Michigan. So that's why another journey yet ahead.
That's beautiful. Manifested dream home. I like that. And I was looking at all of you guys' bio, and I was usually I don't plan the panels, right? I invite people and then people join whatever they feel like. And it always is magical how everybody kind of like fits in some ways. And so I've been starting to be curious. And now I looked at your information and you guys are all mind, body, and the quantum, right? It's like mind, body, spirit, mind, body, spiritual way of how we see like the spirit, wearing your crown spiritly. It's like all ends up being very energetic within us. And I really like this because when we're starting a business, we really go outward. We look at what everybody is asking for, what everybody is telling us to do, what everybody has done before us, where all the answers are within us. And I would like you guys to inspire the new people that are either growing their businesses or that are starting their businesses. And I'm going to ask you guys to answer this question. When you embarked on your soulpreneur journey, how did you ensure your business practices were aligned with your spiritual values? And what were some of the significant challenges you had to overcome? And we can start with Rachel.
Okay, let me read this. You had it here for me to read. Okay, when you embarked on your soulpreneur journey, how did you ensure your business practices were aligned with your spiritual values? And what were some of the significant challenges you had to overcome? Okay, let me take it piece by piece. So when I didn't, it wasn't something that I had the opportunity to consciously think about in the beginning, because I feel like it was such a God-led experience. Like it kind of found me and happened to me because I had a spiritual awakening October 13th of 2014. And that led me into my own experience of completely just revamping my own internal reality and shedding, of my old self and the becoming process of who I was meant to be. And then it was just happenstance. Like when I started as an entry level position in mental health as what they call a peer counselor, because I was going for myself to help myself, and then just found that it came so easily for me to understand the human mind, to understand these problems that we were having, to understand the solutions. I got it so easily. And then part of it was just the desire to help other people. And when I saw that somebody beside me was struggling with something that I had already went through, it was like, oh well, I know how to fix that, like I've got the answer for you. And then I started hearing this very repetitive message: you were like born for this. That helped me more than my therapy session that I had. Do you know I've been working to try to find that solution for like 10 years, and I couldn't have that breakthrough. And then I talked to you for 5 minutes and I have the breakthrough, and I'm just sitting there like beside them, like as an equal, going, that's pretty wild, and you can only hear so many times somebody say, this must be your purpose. This must be your purpose. You were made for this, before you're like, was I? Is it? So I had to just start questioning, okay, maybe this is what I'm here for. And I just didn't know, because I, came up with some idea of what I was supposed to be doing and how I was supposed to be living based on what society told me or what my parents told me or what have you, right? So I never thought consciously about how my spiritual values would align with my business. It just kind of started happening. And then later, when I was like, okay, maybe I should take this more seriously. And had been in mental health, working in mental health for a while. I'd gotten a degree in psychology. I'd gotten my master's of metaphysics, and I was working in the mental health field, and I wanted to start my own business. So I got the life and spiritual coaching certification, and that was a way that I could practice outside of the mental health field where there were less barriers. And I'm sure those of you that work in the organizational structures understand that there's a lot of barriers to us being able to work and help people the way that we truly want, the way our soul says that we want to. There's a lot of barriers, and I did not like that. I did not like feeling limited. So that's when I decided to step out of those structures, start my own thing. And then that's when I had to start asking myself, okay, well, if these things that are happening here within the organizations that you don't value and you don't support, that make you feel like you can't be your true self while you're helping people. What's the opposite of that? What are the value? What does that mean for me? What do I value instead? And those are the things that I should probably take serious when starting my own business. So it was a journey that developed over time. And you know, those are the challenges that were hard to overcome. Was wow, I've worked so hard to exist within this field. I've worked so hard to make a name for myself within this organizational structure. I've worked so hard to get these degrees that are now not gonna really mean jack when I start my own business. Those aren't really gonna be anything that I can, you know, those don't secure me a spot as a life and spiritual coach now that I've stepped into this totally new arena. And that's scary, you know. And those were some of the challenges I had to overcome mentally for myself, to make that leap and transition outside of, you know, typical organizational structure, being a typical mental health provider, and really branching out and saying, you know what, no, I have something special. I have something on my heart that God says that I need to do a certain way, and I got to go after that. That's a scary leap of faith to make. Those I think were the biggest challenges.
Yeah, listening to the intuition and that gut feeling, because when we don't listen, life will put everything in our way so that we actually go back on our path, right? Eventually.
For sure.
Beautiful. Thank you for that answer.
Thank
Deanna,
you.
your turn.
I started my kind of spiritual path. I can remember it's kind of like Rachel was talking about with an awakening, but it was a reading that I had, because as a scientist, you're always kind of like, I was always curious about everything, but not quite trusting. Like you always see, oh, I'm not sure that that's 100%. And it happened to be a reading that I knew for a fact that there's no, you know, it's like, as the scientist, I could go, they didn't know this, they didn't know this, I've never seen them before, you know, all the things. And so it really kind of opened up. I started on my own journey. While I was still in corporate America, I'm a chemist by background. I'm a research scientist. So I spent 25 years in pharma. And so I was in that space, but quietly on the side, kind of doing my own research and learning all about all the spiritual things. And it was, you know, it was fun, but there's a lot of things to learn, etc. And what happened along the way is, as I kind of got more and more fed up, like Rachel, with kind of the things that were going on, the way people were treated, right? It was less about what was it was more about how people were treated in the big cog, right? You just cog in the big wheel of everything, and realizing that, you know, there's more here. So when the opportunity came, actually, it was interesting because spirit is always lovely how it works. I got laid off 3 times from my job, and found the first time I found a job fairly quickly in a totally different space. And I was like, okay, this is interesting, but I went for it. The second time I got laid off, I said, okay, I get it. I'm supposed to be doing something else, but I had just started my spiritual path. And I said, guess what, guys? Just get me another job for a while. Let me get the money so I can put it aside. I got this. I'm supposed to do something else. Okay. And so we did that for a little while. And then lo and behold, I got laid off again. And that time I got laid off with such a great number of people, there was no going back. But interestingly enough, I had no desire to go back. So I was ready to step out. I had done my certifications. At that point, I was a Reiki master and an Archangelic Light master, and I was going to embark in the healing space. Now, I'm going to be a little bit different because I got that science logical background. I came after this as a business from the start. I watch a lot of spiritual folks struggle. I've seen a lot of people come and go. They have the most wonderful values. They have the most wonderful products, services, etc., but they don't treat it like a business. It's still a business. We still have to operate in this 3D world. So I immediately went in and treated it just like a business. So I was fortunately, because I got laid off, I got all this business coaching, like if you want to start your new business. And yes, it wasn't wasn't a healing business. They couldn't even understand that, but I could do all the other things that I needed to do. And so honestly, I would really encourage people to do that from the start. If you really want, it doesn't matter what your values are. Of course, your values are always going to come through. But if you really are serious about this, if you want to make it more than just a hobby, if you want to make it a business, then do the serious things. right? Do the serious things that you need, the kind of the little legal things behind the background, get your presence going, all those things. Now, when we talk about what was difficult about this, two things. Interestingly enough, I walked in to this space incredibly naive, because I was walking from science into this space of spirit and love and light, because that's what my values were, love and light. And it didn't take me long to mix with other folks and realize, you know what, there are just same kind of folks here, even if they're spiritual. There are still some folks that are trying to pretend that they're for your best, but they're not necessarily. So it was just a matter of understanding that everybody, this isn't a unique space. Yes, we all want we all have these wonderful values of love and light, of course, right? We're trying to help other people, but understand it's still human. There's still human stuff in there too, right? And so approach things that way. Always take care of yourself too. Now, I'm part of what Rachel said. I'm coming in from science, right? And so I already felt a little bit off put. In other words, I'm coming in and the people I'm around, the communities I'm around have been in that spiritual space, some of them since they were teenagers, right? I mean, they've been embracing it and doing it for so long. And I felt very much like a neophyte. And here's my science background. What has that got to do with spiritual? Nobody else in the spiritual space at the time really was scientist based, right? So I'm already got this little, I feel like I got this little check mark against me. Here's what I can tell you after doing this for years now. And I, like Rachel too, I have a master's degree from organic chemistry from Duke. All my people I went to school with are CEOs or vice presidents or whatever. I'm not using any of that. And that's okay directly. I am using it indirectly. But here's what I learned. In the beginning, I hid from it, right? I kind of put that aside because I'm like, oh, spiritual people, they're going to think science people don't know anything. I'm not going to say anything about it. And then slowly I let it leak a little bit. And then what I found was people found me, they were actually coming to me specifically because of that background, because for whatever reason, they needed that kind of person. So as we're talking about being your authentic self, what's made my business blossom is being my authentic self and opening up and essentially coming out of the closet, so to speak. It's interesting because in the science world, it took me a long time to come out of the closet and say, I'm doing this energy stuff. And even in the energy world, it came a while to go, I'm a scientist by background. And now as I'm going forward, I'm both together. And everybody has their own unique mix of whatever that is for you, right? So bring that together and be yourself. Don't let, so that's probably one of the biggest challenges I had coming over. This is mindset, right? I know Dawn's probably going to talk a little bit about that too. And of course, Rachel, it's a mindset of like, oh, I can only do things in this narrow lane. Nope, there are a lot of people in the world that need your abilities, that need your services, that need what you have. And you are different. Even if there are 3 of you that do exactly the same thing, you are different than everyone else. And there are people that need your specific thing, not the other people. And so just be you, just be yourself. That's probably one of the biggest things I learned. And I'm still working on that. I'm still working on the visibility. The scientist in me is like, I'm not sure you, but yeah, so that's what I would tell people.
Thank you. That's so nice. I do want to touch on something that you talked about. So if you're listening today and you are thinking about having a business and you're thinking, oh, I've heard that I can make $10,000 in 3 or 4 months. Let me break it to you. If you don't show up for your business and if you don't put in the work, it's not going to happen. If you make 10 million, I wish everybody would make 10 million in 3 months. If you make the 10K in 3 months that you've been promised by a lot of coaches out there, it's probably a question of luck. I don't want to be like the mean one that says it won't happen. It could happen. A lot of people are making a lot of money spiritually, in the 3D industry. But like Deanna said, it's very important to take it seriously. Don't just take a coach because they said you're going to make that amount of money. First, go with your values. What are my values? Why do I really want to do this? And go deep in that work. And then find a mentor, find a coach that aligns with those values, but that has done the work so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Don't just go with the first one that says you're going to make this in this amount of time and I guarantee it. There's always fine prints. And in the fine prints, there's one fine print that I would always like to add. You need to show up. You need to be very, very honest on what you want to do, how you want to do it, and be authentic. And then everything else is going to happen. And like both of you said, and I'm sure, Dawn, you're going to say it in your own words, but we live in the 3D, you know? But it doesn't mean you have to listen to what everybody else is saying. Still go inside and then go outside to make it work. And then it will bring everything that you need. So this was my rant for the day. Dawn, your turn to answer this question.
Thank you. This is amazing input. I love it. So, geez, where my journey began, from the beginning, for good or bad reasons, doesn't matter. I knew I was a helper, right? I was the helper in my family. I was the fixer. I was the caretaker. And so I knew that's what I was going to do, which meant back in 1989, that meant college, that meant a degree. And there were struggles with that because school was hard for me, but I knew this is what I wanted to do. So I found the way. I always find the way. And I always tell my clients, anything's possible if we get clear. And I always say, we are mental, physical, emotional, spiritual beings. If we realize that we're all of it, we can't ignore one piece of it. We're physical, emotional, spiritual, mental. We have to address all of it. And so I knew in my heart and soul it was what I wanted to do. And so I went for it. I have a master's degree. I'm a licensed counselor, but I'm also the helper, right? And so the challenge along the way was balancing the giving and the receiving. And I created my practice from the very beginning. I have 4 children. I wanted to be home to raise my kids. So I worked very minimal when they were little, worked for other practices. And the reason I went into the counseling practice I went into is because they provided a certificate in complementary medicine and wellness. So right off the bat, I knew I wanted that certification because I wanted to do it my way, the way that worked for people, not sit back, let someone come into my office once a week, talk and say goodbye and come back next week and talk about the same thing. Repeat, no, let's keep moving towards where you want to go. What's your dream? What's your desire? What's your passion in life? And I always did it that way. And then I didn't go into coaching until 2010 because I kept having clients tell me, you're a coach, you're not a therapist. And back in right before 2010, I had no idea what they were talking about. A coach? What's a coach? I don't do sports. I don't know what you're talking about. And they said, no, you're a coach, like a life coach. You help me reach my goals. You help me see possibility. Therapists usually just sit and listen to the problems and you come back and you do it all over. I'm like, well, yeah, that doesn't work for anybody. It doesn't work for anybody, especially not in my office. And so I went into coaching and went through the coaching program and realized I was doing that. It was aligning with the way I was already practicing and gone through yoga training. So I'm a yoga teacher, the Intensati leader training that I mentioned before. So the mindful practices, the personal empowerment practices were always a part of what I taught. And so it was working perfect, right? Providing to my clients, being able to be home as a mom and just making the journey happen. And then there was a significant challenge that I had to overcome to get to where I am today, which was lots of life things happened at once, which was my husband lost his job. I had to go to work full times. My last 2 children are twins, so I had just had twins. And being the fixer, right? Things come to us because I believe there's lessons to be learned, right? So I was still holding on subconsciously to that old belief of take care, fix. So when my husband lost his job, I'll go get a job. I got it. I got this. I'll take care of it. I'll fix this. And it was exhausting. It was a really toxic place to be. That evolved into health issues. I was diagnosed with cancer. So then ended up taking 2 years off work. altogether. And I was doing mental health in that full-time job, but it was mental health with in the jail system with inmates, which was actually very intriguing and insightful, but it was the company that provided so much toxicity. And I decided I can't do this anymore. I'm done helping people. I'm done giving. I have to pause. And in that 2 years, I discovered my passion, my calling was calling me back, but in a way I could do it in a healthy way that I can give to others, build my business, be a good mom, a good wife, a good person, just be me, but also provide a service to others. And so that's where I'm at today, is being able to move through those old stories, keeping our eyes wide open, right? I say to my clients, I'm here to help you create a conscious life. Wake up, be awake, be conscious, create the life that you desire. And I was just faced with another moment to say, Dawn, a little bit more waking up here and notice your path where you want to be. And so that's why I do what I do now full time. Kids are adults now. And so still being mom, of course, but creating a business that I really love and continue to work with my clients in a way that serves them, because they show up and tell me what they need. And then we see how we align.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this.
You're welcome.
We're going to go with our second question, and we're going to start with Deanna this time. So in the beginning, how did you deal with the inevitable self-doubt and setbacks? Because when we start, we don't always, but a lot of times we're going to have this feeling that, am I even supposed to be here? And I've heard you say, like when you were a scientist, you didn't want to say that you were in the spiritual world. And when you were in the spiritual, it took you time to say you were a scientist. So that creates some kind of self-doubt and setbacks. And what support system or strategies did you rely on to keep moving forward?
So, as you said, it was interesting at first, especially the setbacks kind of thing. You're like, okay, it's almost the field of dreams, from baseball. If you build it, they will come. So I built the business, and I'm doing all the things, and I did get a little bit, but not as much as I would want. So then you're sitting there going, okay, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? And what I told myself was, and I guess again, it's that logical piece of it. The support for me was, hey, things don't just happen overnight. You just don't it's just like, you don't just start and it's like, oh, look, all the people are here, right? Any business, whether it's yours or any other kind, it's going to take a little while. So that was part of my support system, was telling myself, you've got to give this time. Don't stop doing things, but you've got to give it time. So that was part of it. I, of course, continued to learn myself. I was still out there getting whatever other information, soaking it in, bringing in other things into what I was doing, all of those kind of things. Then, like Dawn, I had a significant setback that sidelined me for many, many months, right when I was getting started. And part of it was all the detox. Now I know was part of all the detox from 25 years of being in, of having high stress job for that long. And then all of a sudden they're going into this spiritual space where you're channeling energy, which is healing. So I was getting, one, I was calming down, and two, I was getting all this energy going through me. And so it was like, boom, a big, it's like a big change, which really knocked me on my butt, which meant I couldn't really do anything for a little while. So how did I get my support system? It really was spirit. It really was working with my intuition, contacting into the universe. When you're significantly disabled and you can't do anything, there's not a whole lot left to do but sit on your butt on the couch and just sit in that space. And that's part of the reason why it happened to me, was I needed to sit in that space. During that time was when I first started working really diligently with angels. In a way, again, as a scientist, I'd be like, yeah, it never occurred to me that, I could talk with angels or that they would want to chat with me. It never was a thing. However, I was taking a study course during that time. And because I was quiet, because I couldn't do things, I had to sit there and be in that space. It allowed me to get that connection. And so that was a huge support as well. I think the biggest thing, is to keep moving forward, right? Embrace what's there. Understand that even when you start a business, when I started my business, it was strictly kind of energy healing, and yet it became so much more, right? There's intuitive reading that I do. There's all the healing, hypnosis, past life regressions, all of those things all came because I listened to where I was being led, right? And just like anything else, I'm continually learning. And so what I learned, part of the reason, like I said, my business came in, the name of it is Blue Skies Journey, because I was on my journey. I learned a lot of stuff. And I was seeing so many other people who wanted to get started, but didn't know what they to do, right? They just needed something like, hey, I've already been through it all. Let me show you where this is. Right. And so that was and that's kind of how I took it in, and I just keep embracing it. So I think support system, ultimate support system, right inside here, your heart and your connection. That's the ultimate support system. Certainly your family is helpful too. My husband is an engineer, so not into this space at all. But he didn't ever come out and say anything. He's like, okay, you just do your thing. You go off and do your thing. All right, you do it. But other than that, I had some close friends, but not a lot. Most of my friends were from a different paradigm, right? They were from the more science-based. So it really comes down to you, your heart, your connection. Those are the biggest support you can have, right? The biggest and best is what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Rachel, your turn.
Wow, what a question. Well, my work is rooted in self-worth healing, and self-doubt is such a huge part of that. So a lot like Deanna, my own personal journey that created my work is what I used to deal with that for myself. In my program, we have 4 rules of royalty, and the first one is to speak to yourself like royalty. So having that, like Deanna was speaking about, like, your own internal self-support system is paramount. But I think that doubt is such a human thing, right? That's part of how our brains work. We're going to have doubts. It is our brain's job to weigh pros and cons, to go, this is crazy. What are you doing? To try to help keep you safe, right? That's the function of the brain that's going to happen. Like you said, inevitable self-doubt. And anybody who tries to move into some kind of bigger dream, higher calling, there is this moment of, imposter syndrome, because you go, who am I to try to go after that? My mom didn't do that. My dad didn't do that. My sister didn't. I don't know anybody who's done anything like that. I've only seen people like that on YouTube. There's this thing that happens in you where all these things come up, and we have to have tools to combat that. But I think what's even more paramount than the speaking to yourself about it well, using that internal self-talk, is that I made a deep and personal commitment, because there's ways to keep and maintain inspiration and motivation along the way. But if you don't have that, if you're not rooted in a deep commitment to, this is going to happen for me, and like, I don't have a plan B, there is no plan B, this is the way and the only way. It was like I had to make this deep and personal commitment between God and myself. Like, I had to commit to God. Okay, yes, I see this vision, your God's will, higher calling on my life. I accept and receive that mission. I accept and receive that calling. And yes, I will do it, no matter what. No matter what. And it wasn't, okay, I'll do it if I get this much. It's not a job interview where you're going, okay, but the salary has to be this and the hours have to be this and this. When you have a higher calling, God says, you're doing this, and you get to go, what do I get, and what's the outcome, and and you don't get to know that part. Do you want to do it or not? And you just kind of have to say yes to like this deep, dark, unknown, limitless, whatever it could be, and whatever comes with that, and have this ginormous amount of faith to just say, all right, let's do it, God. And that is the scariest yet most exciting moment of your entire life. If you can do that for yourself, and everybody has one of those too. Like, we're not special. I think, well, we are special, right? We're special, we're unique. Deanna's special, Dawn's special, I'm special, right? We're all special, but we're also, everybody's special. Like, God has a purpose and a calling for everybody. We all get that opportunity at some point in our life to say yes or to say no to that higher calling and mission that God has for us. So I think that deep commitment, saying yes to whatever it involves, because I have to remember that. And when the hardships show up and when the setbacks show up, I have to remember and tell myself, remember, you said no matter what. You said whatever it takes. That's what you signed up for. That's what you committed to. And you are a person of integrity and you will follow through no matter what. So that was huge for me. And the types of things that I would have to tell myself is I had to claim, and in my program, we say, remember who you are, that it's this soul truths about yourself. This isn't a three-dimensional, right? We're people of the spiritual. So this isn't a three-dimensional, who am I? I'm a psychologist, I'm a therapist, I'm a counselor, it's not the titles that exist here in the three-dimensional world. It's the inherent spiritual truths of who I am, those I ams. I am, this limitless being. I am powerful beyond measure. I am, these types of spiritual I ams that I continuously affirmed to myself as I walked forward in those moments where I felt smaller. I felt like, oh, I'm just Rachel. How could I do that big crazy thing? No. I'm not just Rachel. Rachel is a soul, right? That's three-dimensional self. I'm have to claim spiritual self, because then that empowers me and makes me feel like it is possible for me to move forward, because human Rachel couldn't be an author. That was outside of the realm of possibility for me. I couldn't figure out how to get it done. And I think it was Deanna that was saying that she got laid off, and those are setbacks that are sometimes divine, right? I also got laid off. And at first you're like, why me? Like, I can't believe you fired me. What am I gonna do? And you just like go into this crisis mode. But looking back, it's like hindsight's always 2020. So looking back, it was like the best moment of my life, because it was when I got fired, I realized I got fired. I was on unemployment insurance for the first time in my life with a newborn baby, breastfeeding, and like typing my book with the other hand. It was like, that was the moment that God called me to write a book. I didn't know author was not in the realm of possibilities for me. I'd never dreamt that for myself, but that was in God's will for myself. So when I was called to do that, I was like, me? You're like looking behind you, like, are you sure? Like, out of all the people, you got the wrong one, God. It's that's self-doubt. That's the experience of it. You must have the wrong one. But then I had to say, well, if God knows better than me, God knows more than me. He's not confused. God's not confused. He's got the right one. It is me, and I am available. So, it's just, that's the moment we have that free will choice, and we have to continuously say, yes, okay, and I am available, and I will do it, and I will do it, and I will do it, no matter how big and crazy it seems. We have to trust that our higher power, God, angels, universe, that when we're spoken to, when those things are put on our heart, that it's there for a reason, and that it's not always, it's kind of corny to say, but it's like that God doesn't always call the qualified, but he always qualifies the called. So that even if you don't feel like you have the skills, even if you don't feel like you can do it, don't worry. Whatever you need to bring that to fruition will happen. And the setbacks that happen are the things like getting laid off, the things like getting sick. I had to evacuate a house that had mold and had mold toxicity. I got sick. I had COVID. Starting businesses during COVID is one of the hardest things that you could ever do. My husband's business and my business started during COVID. Those were crazy times. And the support systems and strategies that I used were Oh, also, another setback that I want to talk about that's really important to me is that sometimes you have to believe in yourself by yourself. Don't expect that just because somebody loves you, and somebody can love you and be like your biggest support more than anything on the planet, and still be like, what? How are you going to make that happen? How are you going to do that? You know, and even the people closest to you will be some of the hardest people to be in your support system while you're trying to do a big thing, because you've been this person for your whole life, and now all of a sudden you're called to do this higher thing, and they're like, what? Like, that sounds crazy, because it does sound crazy, right? So sometimes you have to believe in yourself by yourself for a very long time before people start to go, oh my gosh, she's actually doing, oh my, wow, you really did do that, you know? And so I think staying quiet is a good strategy. When I wrote my book, I didn't tell anybody about it. It was like, I think my husband and my best friend were like and my mom were like the only three people in the world that knew, because I didn't want anybody's opinions, because it looked crazy. I was unemployed. I had an infant. It didn't make sense. So I didn't want anybody's like external judgments or energies like messing with the energetic integrity of this manifestation I was trying to bring into the world, because I also didn't know how I was going to do it. And I had enough self-doubt on my own. So I was like, leave yours over there. So staying quiet and having faith, and a practice of letting God guide you every single day for aligned actions. When in doubt, just ask, what do I do now? That's it.
I love
Sorry,
how
that was
you're
very
ending
long.
this. No, that's okay. But I love how it ended. What do I do now? You know, Dawn, your turn. What do I do now?
Gosh, it leads into so well, and that what I do when in doubt.
Yeah.
So I've got like sort of like 3 points to make. One is when I was in freshman year in college, and I was faced with panic attacks, anxiety, and insomnia. I have to go to college to get the degree to do what I want to do. Back in the 80s, right? This was the path. This was just the path you take. And had a panic attack in class, got myself to the bathroom without passing out or having a heart attack, which is what it feels like. And I remember the moment looking in the mirror thinking, I can't be this person who feels inadequate, self-doubt, struggling. I can't do this. What if I fail another test? And be the successful counselor, coach, therapist, spiritual teacher that I want to be. So I remember that moment so clearly that I had to decide who I wanted to be. I had to decide. And I did. And I chose meditation versus the other word, medication, which was offered. And I thought, that's just not like this inner knowing. Like, that's not the answer, because it's this image I have of myself that has to shift, not biology. At that moment, it wasn't. It was something else. And so I found meditation, and that I'd say meditation is my magic pill, because it worked. And I teach meditation. It's that mind training, that mind heart connection to who do I want to be, and how do we calm the chaos and show up every day, even when we're still that little doubts hanging on, showing up every day to be who we want to be. So that was the one. It's just decide, choose, consciously choose who I wanted to be. The next one is ask for guidance. Ask. When I would be in doubt, whether it was through therapy practice before coaching, or when I shifted big in 2020, my work, because now we're almost always online, right? So I shifted really big, and I would wonder, am I really meant for this? Am I really impacting people? Am I really making a difference? Like, show me. And we ask, but then we also have to listen, right? Listen to the answer. And I think every time I would meditate and pray and ask for guidance, I would get an answer so clearly. There's no doubt. One, I got a message from a woman in Australia. She said I could share her story. She's a beautiful soul, never been a client of mine, but follows all the work I do on lives, on Facebook, on Instagram, all the lives I do. She wrote me one day and said, Donna, I was so close to ending it all. I know you don't know me, you never met me, but I was at a low of low. I have a child, but nothing mattered. I was so low. I felt like the world would be better off without me. And I follow your teachings, and now I found my voice again. I found my value again. She writes music, she sings, she'll send me songs that she writes. She'll post on social media. She's singing in front of audiences. Those are the messages I get from people, whether it's email, a message on Facebook, someone coming up to me and saying, I saw your thing and you touched a heart. And it's almost always after I'm praying, I'm like, am I really making a difference? Is this really what you want me to be doing? And apparently it is. So I keep showing up. I keep showing up. And the other piece to the question was, I'm a lifelong learner. So I'm always learning, and I'm always in groups. During COVID, I joined the Bob Proctor coaching program. It was a 1-year program for me to be coached. I'm in a mastermind group through that community. So masterminds, being in collective groups that really are like-minded, for the lack of better words, because again, as Rachel, I think, was saying, sometimes our families or friends, and I think Deanna, you said too, like they look at us like we have antenna growing out of our head. Like, what are you talking about? Angels? Angels? Are you sure? Dreams? You really make dreams come true? Magic? Are you sure? Like, yeah. So being in those masterminds and those groups where we can really share ideas, get supported, find answers, like that's where I continue to get my support and keep my vision and stay true and listen. Always listen. We always know. If we listen, the messages are received.
Yeah, we do always know. And well, you guys know that, but if you're listening today and you're thinking, well, they're lucky they can hear, everybody can hear. It is like Rachel said, we are all special, but we're not special. We all have it. We can all hear, we can all channel, we can all feel it. But if you are keeping your head in the noise, your intuition will not be loud enough. So you need to sit, and we don't have to wait for to be sat down by the universe. We don't have to wait to be sick. We don't have to wait, like Deanna, to just be forced to sit still and be quiet. We can make that decision and sit and open our hearts. And when we do that, everything comes forth. Your intuition starts speaking louder and louder and louder. And then it is a choice whether you want to keep on going or you want to keep on being in the noise. It is your choice at the end of the day. But if you're listening here today, you probably have made the choice that you're ready to take the next leap. Taking the next leap means being clear with what you want to do, and who you want to be, not in the, like, I want to be an engineer, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a scientist. Like, who do I want to be? What do I want to serve? How do I want to serve? And we're going to keep on going with you, Dawn, with the next question. Because finding clarity and purpose is crucial, especially in the early days of a soul-led business. What tools or insights were most helpful for you in maintaining a clear vision for your business?
Tools and insights. Tools is meditation, journaling, write. I always say write. Don't type. I can't see my pen, but really, like, write.
See?
I say write. Yeah, there we go. Here we go. You can see it. And this is my manifesting with friends pen. So writing. When we write, it creates thinking. When we write, I always say writing is the doorway to the subconscious mind. Writing can help us clear away the old crap and also tap into the creativity and our genius and our intuition. Write it out, right? And meditation, calm the chaos, be in the stillness, and listen. And yes, there's guided meditations. Meditation is not difficult. I'll have people say to me, it's hard, I can't do it. There's so much chatter. There's chatter. It's just how do we sit in the chatter until the chatter subsides. So please, if you're listening and you think, oh, but I can't do meditation. Yes, you can. And it's teachable. So starting with 1 minute a day, just 1 minute to just calm, and so you can hear what's calling you. So So I hope that answered the question.
It did. It's beautiful. And we're going to go with Deanna now to answer the question.
I think so. Part of it is, I mean, because this is the space we're working in. We're in a spiritual space, and it's literally what Dawn just said is really doing the kind of meditation and getting quiet and allowing stuff to come in. And and just like Dawn said, meditation doesn't have to be difficult. I think when I first walked this path, I'm like, oh, I have to sit down on the floor with my legs crossed and I have to chant Om and know things can come in my mind, because that's what you see, right? That if you don't walk into space, that's what you see. So that's what you think. And it wasn't until I started walking through this as like, no, you know what? Taking a walk around the neighborhood, that's meditation, right? If you're in a space where your mind is clear, that's just as good. Hey, I can get into meditation. It sounds terrible when I'm washing the dishes. Why? Because my hands are busy doing stuff, but my mind is free. So getting into those places helped me to keep kind of clear on things, especially when I think when I first started out, you have a specific vision of what it's going to be, of whatever your business is going to be. And then it's going okay, but it's not necessarily going as you would like. And it's almost like you're forcing, you're kind of pushing it down this path because this is the way it's supposed to be, instead of listening to what's coming in. And so then once you start to kind of listen to that guidance, it's like, oh, step into this. Oh, step into that. So a perfect example was really interesting. When I first started, I was a Reiki master and an Archangelic Light master. And I did those particular energy healing sessions very differently because they're similar, but they are different. And I ended up going to a group, a reunion of a bunch of spiritual souls, like Dawn had said earlier about getting with your group. And in that, we did love offerings. And I decided to do a love offering of a short energy healing session for everybody for the weekend, whoever signed up. And nobody knew what Archangelic Light was. They didn't still to this day, a lot of people don't know what that healing form is, right? So I could say what it was and people I don't know what that is. What ended up happening is when I was doing those little sessions, the intuition came in to mix them, right? To just let them come out however they wanted to come, not be so prescriptive about things. And it was the first time that I kind of allowed myself to not go, oh, this is this and this is this, right? It's kind of like starting to blend with me and my authentic self. Why did that happen? Because I was willing to go. I was very, very nervous, right? I didn't know these people very well. As much as you may not believe it, I'm pretty much of an introvert. So it was very difficult to do that. And so I was already nervous. And so I just let it happen. I listened to my intuition and let it happen. And so that kind of informs what I do now. Everything is so individual based on whoever's in front of me and whatever they need at the moment. But it couldn't have gotten there if I had kept my focus too much on, oh, this is the way it's got to be. Keep going. This is the way, instead of going, oh, this is the way. Here's your tweak, right? Here's your tweak. And so many things along the way did the same thing. I ended up, someone had told me about Dolores Cannon and quantum healing hypnosis. And I was like, I have never even heard of her before. I don't know anything about any of this, just about 4 years ago or so. But as soon as I read it, I was like, oh, that I just this, kind of like Rachel was saying, it's just this feeling, right? You've just got this feeling right here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I have to do this. Again, the doubts come in like, who are you to do that? No, what do you know? That's too much, whatever. That's so different. What are you talking about? And yet I was listening to, I felt that spirit call to do it. And then I started doing it and I got rewarded by the divine. They were just like, here. And during COVID, during lockdown, when people weren't even getting out and I needed to have 25 people to complete my internship, I got them in 2.5 months. Where it was just phenomenal. And so I just breezed through and I still get all these people and all this stuff to help me. Why? Because I bothered to listen, right? Because if I had just stuck to the straight thing, like I'm doing the thing, here's what I'm doing, I would only be still just an energy. Not that there's anything wrong with being that, but I'm just saying I wouldn't have blossomed into the other things that I was meant to do. And the way things change, right? Your business changes as you do. You're growing, right? Your people you're working with are growing. How can you better help them, right? And so your business may well, it may not too. It may be just, no, this is really it. And that's fine too. But if you change and your business change, pay attention to those kind of nudges, and it'll come in signs, right? For those, you mentioned Dominique, and you're like, how do I know? I don't know. Here I'm a scientist. It's not like I get these great things coming in. I struggled. But here's what I can tell you. When things come into you 2 and 3 times, you're being led, right? You're being led. It's like somebody's trying to tell you something. You see something, what should be something, I don't know, maybe it's Reiki. Let's say you've been lead to be Reiki. And you heard one of your friends go, oh, you know, so there's something about this Reiki thing. You just heard Reiki, right? And then somewhere on television for somebody mentions Reiki. And you're like, what on earth? And then in your feed somewhere on Instagram, there's some Reiki thing comes up. It's like, if you get things like that just come up again and again and again, that's your higher self. That's your intuition coming through and say, pay attention. So it doesn't have to be that you sit down and you have this great psychic awareness that you could. But if you're like me and very analytical, especially when I first started out, pay attention to the signs, because those signs are the things your team is going to keep putting them in front of you until you listen. And so if you get these messages over and over again, pay attention to what they are. And so that's kind of what helped me to be one of my tools. It's like, pay attention to those things. Everybody can get the information. And so even when you don't think about it, you're not doing it. If those things start showing up, somebody's trying to tell you something, pay attention and listen, because they want you to succeed just as much as you do. You have this great mission to go out and help these people. They want you to help the people too, right? And so they're trying to give you as much encouragement and direction as possible. So just pay attention, and you'll be surprised. Even if you think you can't, I guarantee you can.
Yeah, I love when you say, here's your tweak. You know, it is going to tweak you along the way. And it's actually perfect in going into what Rachel talks about, because Rachel, I know that you do have these conversations with God, and whatever you believe in today, if you're listening, you know, there's something out there that is an energetic thing. Let's call it a thing, you know? But whether you call it God, you call it Buddha, or you call it John, or you call it Claire, there is some source out there. And this source, here's your tweak, will always offer you the clarity if you decide to hear it. And Rachel, I would love to hear your take on the clarity question.
Okay, I'm gonna try not to go into another TED Talk because there's like so much to say about this topic. I think the first thing that's on my heart is just that finding clarity and purpose is a continuous experience, because depending on where you're at in your journey, the vision and the purpose might be different. You know, in the beginning of my journey, the clarity was heal thyself, and that was my purpose to do it in that moment. And then it became, you know, be this peer counselor thing, get this degree, build a website, do that. You know, it's like the purpose was different at different phases of my life. And being open to that evolutionary experience, and letting the vision change and evolve as you change and evolve is something foundational that we have to know about clarity and about purpose, that it's not always going to look the same, and it's not always going to be the same aligned actions that we're called to do. So just because you got a calling or a purpose to do or be something or perform in a certain way at the beginning of your journey, that's going to change as you go. And that's okay. We're supposed to be changing. We're supposed to be evolving. The tools and insights that I use in that is to stay in a consistent process of asking for clarity and asking what are my next aligned steps. And once I loved what Dawn said about like writing, because we really do access like some other part of our brain when we write things down. I keep a manifestation journal, and as the manifestations come to pass and I see those things, you know, happen before my eyes, then I get to say, okay, now what else do I focus on? I also love what Dawn said about, like, she said she always knew she was a helper. That I resonated with that so much, because that was the one truth that I could find in since childhood, right? That every different thing that I ever dreamed of being, because I dreamed of being so many things, but the consistent factor in all of them was, it was how could I help people through that? How could I inspire others to be a better version of themselves? How could I show others that things were possible for them that they didn't think were possible for them before? So there was this consistent truth, and whether it was me being this or being that, I always wanted to inspire others. I always wanted to motivate people, and I always wanted to love people. So having a core vision that's kind of formless, right, and just energetic in nature, hanging on to that, and then letting that manifest however it wants to manifest at the time. And we can express, I think, like I was kind of saying at the beginning, you can express an energy in so many ways, right? If I want to teach people about self-worth, I can do that through writing the book. I can do that through teaching a class. I can do that through a painting. I can do that so there's so many ways I could, through a song, right? I could, so many ways that I could express that same energy, and just staying really open-minded to letting that happen how it wants to happen. Tools and insights that were most helpful in maintaining a clear vision. And then for me, I do love the word. I like the word God. It means so much more. I was born and raised Baptist Christian, and I still say God, but I had a spiritual awakening that was quite experiential and opened my eyes to so much more. But I just still say God. It means a lot to me. But at the end of the day, that higher power, whatever, like, letting yourself be led, knowing that I don't have to have a vision all on my own. I don't have to come up with this. I don't have to put all the pieces together. I don't have to plan it out and shape it out and create it myself. That there is a vision that exists in a higher realm. There's a vision that my higher power has for me that I get to tap into, rather than me having to exert will and effort into, like, creating a vision or making something happen. It's just more of like an allowing, more of a surrendering to, and letting a vision come to me, right? That's I think the most important part for me, is remembering that I don't have to work so hard at this, right? It's not about me doing a bunch of work. Just let it happen. It already exists. It's an alignment thing when it comes to vision and clarity, more than anything else. Align with the vision. Allow the vision. Tap into the vision. Tune into the vision that already exists for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know that you do time travel therapy, and like Bob Proctor always says that also, if you had it in your head, you have it in your hand. Like, you can, if you thinking about it, it's already there. It already exists. Now it's just for you to bring it forth. And I want to recap on a couple of, you guys like just gave so many golden nuggets here. It's incredible, and I want to thank you for it. But I would like to recap on some of the golden nuggets that I got today. Dawn, you said, and Rachel said it also, whether it was good or bad, in life, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. What is, it just is. But whether it was good or bad, I was the helper. And then you went into, there is always a way to balance the giving and the receiving when you consciously choose who you want to be. And I think that when you are starting your business, or you're growing your business, or you're launching something new, this is a golden nugget that we shall not forget. Rachel, you have a God-led experience. I also use the word God. I do believe that everybody is entitled to believe to whoever they want to. There is one source. This is in my world, and I call it God. You can call it whatever you want, but to understand that there is a source out there, and you can rely on that source so that you're not alone. It doesn't have to be hard. You just have to rely on the source. And you said, when you speak to yourself, it's one of your 4 rules. Speak to yourself like if you are royalty. Definitely, definitely do that, because when you're speaking to yourself like if you were royalty, you're going to bring out to the world the royalty in you, right? And make a deep commitment to your inner calling, because you have the choice to say yes when your calling comes. Your calling is there. It's, are you open to receive it? So thank you, Rachel, for that. And Deanna, Spirit will kindly guide you. Spirit is always there and it will guide you however you need to be guided. So getting quiet and a lot of stuff to come in, you know, some people are forced to do that. Some people can actually still have the chance. I hope if you're listening today, you know, and you're like, well, I haven't been guided, do like Deanna did. Just sit down, be quiet. Don't be forced for it though. And listen, it will come. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You said it many times. Listen to the guidance. It does not have to be difficult. Thank you so much for all your knowledge and for all your experience. You guys have been walking the path for a while now, and everybody can learn from you. And if you are listening today and you want to know or get in touch with anyone on the call, you have the handles in the corner, but I will also put them in the show notes. And now I would like to know, what is going on in your working world? I'm not going to go deep into the who are you and what do you do. What's going on in your working world? And we're going to start with Dawn.
Oh, there we go. So coming up, thank you for asking. Coming up October 5th, I'm doing a 2-day event with a colleague of mine. We're partnering up, so you're going to get two powerhouses of mindset practices. I met him through the Bob Proctor coaching program. So we're going to be doing, it's a free 2-day event to really learn about how to shift the paradigm, shift the story, and really create a powerful, positive self-image to really step into your worthiness. So that's coming up. And if you go to my website and sign up for any of my freebies, you'll be notified when how to sign up for the paradigm shift.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I will put everything in the show notes.
Thank you.
How about you, Deanna?
So we hardly touched a little, we only touched a little bit on one of the things that I most love to do, which is quantum healing hypnosis, which includes past life regressions and things like that. And the changes, the transformations I have seen in people is just amazing. It's very interesting to see all that knowledge that happens. So the things I do are really about individuals, right? So every person comes in, has their own unique whatever they need. So it may be a quantum healing hypnosis session. It may just be past life regression. It may be energy healing. It may be some mix of things. And so I always approach everybody as with what they need and what they need at the time. So out on my website, there is lots of information about QHHT, about past life regression, about beyond quantum healing, all things that I do. But I think more importantly, what I want everybody to know is if you were listening to things today and you're like, I need to talk to somebody. I wanted to find, I don't know where I should go next. Like that's part of my journey, right? I don't know what else I need. I don't know what I'm doing. I need some help. On my website, on the front page, there is schedule a free consultation, or you can just do blueskiesjourney.com/consultation. And you can have we'll set up a 20-minute schedule call. We'll just talk. What is it that you need? What do you need to know? So I can get to know you and see, is there a way that I can help you? Maybe it's just I'm answering a couple of questions for you. Maybe it's a service that we do. But whatever it is, I'm there for you. And because I know what it was like to walk through, to kind of, especially again, coming from that science world of, it's like coming out of the dark, right? Very 3D, coming down this thing. I'm like, I don't even know where to go. I don't know who to trust. I don't know what's real. I don't know, all those things, right? And so because I've walked that path, I'm always here to help other people walk that path too. So if you feel like you're called to do that, then, pop me in, schedule a consultation, we'll have a chat.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that offering. And again, it's also going to be in the show notes. Rachel, how about you?
So I have tons of courses and products that I couldn't talk about them all without taking up everybody's time. So I'm going to just talk about my signature methodology, which is the How to Wear a Crown program, which we've talked about a little bit already. There's a book. So it's the How to Wear a Crown, a practical guide to knowing your worth, that's available on Amazon. There is a entire program that's self-paced and self-guided, or with the option to upgrade to working with me one-on-one if you want that option. And then there is a workbook and a journal that goes along with it. So it's a whole movement. It's got tons of products that are involved in it that you would use. But I'll just say that you can find all of my things at www.racheldgreenwell.com, and you can find all of my products and courses by clicking Academy from my website. It'll say How to Wear a Crown. You can enroll, you can message me from there, ask me all the questions, anything that you need. But I would say everything is designed to be 100% self-paced at your own time, in your own, that fit into your own schedule. It's all there and available for you any day or time of the night. So no appointment needed. Just hit up my website and check out everything I do.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rachel, Deanna, and Dawn, for being here, for sharing all your wisdoms again. And thank you, listeners, for being here and listening. Reach out if you need any help. We are all here for you today. And I will see you 2 weeks with another Soulful Conversation Collective.